stem cell, arthroscopic surgery, and microsurgery. At the Orthopedic Center of Palm Beach County, we are dedicated to providing a comprehensive solution to get you back to your routine as quickly as possible, in the shortest period of time, with the least amount of inconvenience. With 3 beautiful new offices located in Lake Worth, Boynton Beach, and Wellington, we are able to provide much-needed care to families in the South Florida area. Give us a call at 561-967-6500. From our experienced physicians to the most advanced treatment options to our state-of-the-art facilities and excellent support staff, the Orthopedic Center of Palm Beach County is committed to providing you with the very best care. Call us at 561-967-6500 or find us at www.ocpbc.com.
Know your body, gain control of your health, transform your life. If your body could talk, what would it tell you? At DexaFit, we show you how to take control of your health and fitness to live a happier, more fulfilling life. Hormones, metabolic health, and cardio fitness all play a significant role in your energy levels, sleep quality, and overall well-being. With our proven methods of measure, track, and discover, we show you how your body composition, cardio fitness, and metabolic health compare to your optimal level. At DexaFit, our goal is to help you identify and understand the health and fitness of how to transform your body to meet your individual goals, break through your plateaus, and take the guesswork out. Improve your energy levels, sleep, and weight. Give us a call at 561-923-8833. We are conveniently located at 2499 Glades Road in Boca Raton. Schedule an appointment online at DexaFit.com. Give us a call, 561-923-8833, and mention this ad for special pricing.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. We're all human, and it's important to know that doctors are people too. Doctors have emotions, they have passions in life and hobbies, and they enjoy participating as active members in the communities where they practice medicine. Doctors have families, friends, and relationships, while the latest in healthcare and the most current treatments for ailments will be topics on this Doctors Are People Too radio TV show. The focus will be in learning more about the interesting aspects in a physician's life and what they do away from the doctor's office or operating room table.
Hello, South Florida and beyond, and welcome to Doctors Are People Too, and globally on the iHeartRadio app, and locally and globally on the WWNN radio app, and then also on 95.3 FM, our news station here, and 1470 AM. Welcome to Doctors Are People Too. Have a great show lined up tonight. I don't think I've ever had an OBGYN on the show since we've been doing this show since May, so this will be really something I've been looking forward to talk about the latest and greatest in OBGYN care. And without further ado, I want to welcome Dr. Alan Patterson. Dr. Patterson, welcome to Doctors Are People Too. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me on.
And thank you for coming on Doctors Are People Too. How long have you been at OBGYN in the Boca Raton area?
I moved down here in 1991. I practiced in Indianapolis from 83 to 91. I moved down for a practice opportunity and the great weather, and I've stayed ever since. So I've been down here for quite a long time.
Yeah, and you can't beat the weather this year. I mean, it's been, had a couple cool fronts, but it's been very balmy lately, I think's the word.
It's been great.
Yeah, so it beats those Indiana snowstorms, huh?
Definitely. Do not miss a winter at all.
And you also have an office not only in Boca Raton, but in Coral Springs as well, right over the line in Broward County?
Correct. I have one on Wiles Road, 7451 Wiles Road, Suite 205. It's on Wiles Road, just a little west of 441.
Okay, then let's just do it right now. Also in Boca Raton, what is your address and phone number?
660 Glades Road, number 340. 561-417-4000. It's located right near Boca Raton Regional Hospital.
And that number, 561-417-4000 here in Palm Beach County, works for both the Coral Springs and Boca Raton locations?
Correct. We try to keep it simple. I have another number for my other office, but either number goes to either office.
Okay, we'll just keep it simple, the 561 number, since we're in Palm Beach and Broward County.
Exactly.
So, how long have you been practicing medicine as an OBGYN?
I've been in practice since I finished my residency in 1983. So I've been delivering babies since 1983, practicing OBGYN infertility.
Okay, and what are your areas of interest? I know we're going to get into as many as we can, but if you can just name them at this time, and then I'll kind of later on in the interview kind of talk a little bit more about them.
Sure, I do obstetrics, both low risk and high risk, office GYN, and a lot of office GYN surgery. That's the latest trend, is to do as many things safely as possible in the office, so you don't have to take somebody necessarily to the hospital. It's much more economical, more convenient for the patient, and the patients like it better to be treated in your office and have to go to the hospital.
That definitely makes it a lot easier right there in the office. What are the age range of patients that you see in the office setting here in Boca Raton, Coral Springs?
Basically, I'll see anybody from age 14 to 15 up to 100. We have a lot of older people here that have problems that are still active, so I see a vast age range. There are some specialists, like a pediatric gynecologist, that will see younger patients if they have a problem.
And as well as, I guess, oncologists for OBGYN as well, if there's super specialists like that. But you see the general population, you said age 15 to 100, 14 to 100?
Correct.
Okay. I know it sounds like a basic question, but why is it important for a woman to see an OBGYN? I mean, what makes it something that should be part of their care, I guess, you can tell us quarterly, twice a year basis, or every year?
Well, basically, everybody should be seeing an OBGYN at least once a year for an exam, because it's important to have an exam, to have your breast exam and pelvic exam. Now some of the guidelines for pap smear can space it out some, but I think an OBGYN is better trained to do a pelvic exam and pap smear than other doctors. Other doctors may be trained to do other things better, but for your pelvic and your OBGYN, for your GYN exam, you should definitely be going to a gynecologist, because we know more, we keep up with the latest trends. And if you have a problem, then we can take care of it instead of having to be referred to us from somebody else that may take a while.
It's what we always talk about on this show. It's preventative care, correct?
Yes, I mean, I think it's important for people to have preventative care, take care of themselves, but get checked out, because everybody wants to be normal. But if you do have an abnormality, we want to catch it early. It's much easier to treat something if it's abnormal early than to let it go and have it turn into something bad.
Like anything else, catching it early is key. Walk us into your OBGYN office in Boca Raton and Coral Springs. What is the office setting like, and what type of experience do you and your staff hope to convey to patients, or actually work hard to on an everyday basis to convey to patients? The patient experience is what I'm getting to.
Well, we try to give the patients a good experience. We have a smaller office. Ours is personalized. My patients, a lot have been going to me for years, but they know my staff. My staff is small. We try to treat everybody with respect. We try to run on time, and we try to offer that personalized care that a larger practice may not offer, because my patients are going to see me every time for their GYN, for their OB, and I'm going to be doing their delivery. I've missed like one delivery in the past 4 years.
Wow, that's impressive, and that's important. I mean, a lot of women want to make sure they have their doctor there, that they've been through the whole process through. We're here with Dr. Alan Patterson. He's an OBGYN. You're with Florida Women Care. Tell us a little bit about Florida Women Care.
Sure. Florida Women Care is a large organization. I have my own practice, just like other doctors in Florida Women Care, but we incorporate 400 OBGYN practitioners, doctors, midwives, mid-levels, all over the state of Florida. We all have our own individual practice, but we're all under that umbrella, which gives us the power to negotiate better with insurance companies, get better prices on equipment, and give our patients better care, as opposed to being individual.
And once again, we're here with Dr. Alan Patterson. His number is 561-417-4000. An office in right here in Boca Raton, 660 Glades Road, Suite 340. And then also over in Coral Springs, where you should be hearing us as well, 7451 Wiles Road, Suite 205 in Coral Springs. easy website is obgynpatterson.com. That's obgynpatterson.com is Dr. Patterson's website. And then you're also available on ZocDoc, actually where I found you when I first started researching you after we had met. So that's a easy way to make an appointment. Do you take most major health insurances?
Yes, we're on almost all major health insurances. There's very few that we're not on, but we're listed in most of the insurance books. But if you call my office manager, she can tell you if we're on the plan or not, as she has up to date information. But we're on almost every major plan.
And that's great. You can call the office manager, 561-417-4000. I also found information there on the ZocDoc. They have a little bit of your areas of interest and whatnot there, but that you take most, actually, I just flubbed there, that you've delivered over 5,000 babies, but then we were talking before the show, is a total of 5,600 babies now. That's a lot. So how long have you been delivering babies since?
Well, I actually delivered my first baby in med school, which I hate to say was a long time ago, probably 1978. Delivered quite a few during residency, 79 to 83, and ever since I've been in practice, since 1983.
Now, I got to ask you this question. What's the busiest time of the year for deliveries? Is there one time more than the other? I mean, have you ever seen a pattern?
In my practice, it can vary year to year, really. Mm-hmm. Some people may see a pattern, but each year for my practice, I have different months that are busier. So I don't necessarily see that pattern in my practice, whereas some people may do that.
Yeah, we hear a lot of myths, so I just thought I'd ask you. Now, before I get into all the questions about pregnancy and gynecologic care that you provide and talk more about your areas of interest, I wanted to get... you have an interesting thing called the Patterson rules about obstetrics. What are these rules, and how'd you come about these in your experiences?
Well, basically, I have certain rules I try to practice by, and that's based on my vast experience of being in practice since 1983 and delivering over 5,600 babies. We all try to practice good medicine. We all have slightly different ways that we practice, but we all go by certain guidelines. And there are certain rules that people need to realize. Number one, the very first thing you can do at your first prenatal visit is go over everything with your doctor. Tell your doctor what you want, how you want to do things, and he'll tell you how he wants to do things, and hopefully you can come to compromise. But if there's a problem or an issue, then you should really find another provider because you want to be comfortable with your provider. So at the very first prenatal visit, I tell my patients how I practice and things I do, which may be a little different than other people. But what women need to remember is rule number one, nature doesn't always work right. What we want to happen may not happen. Abnormal things can happen to normal people. So that's why you want to go to a doctor. That's why you want to have prenatal care. That's why in the United States you do not want to deliver at home, because you never know what can happen. You can be totally normal, do all the right things. You can have a problem with the prenatal care before you deliver, during labor, or after labor for no reason. And if you're going to a good doctor that's board certified and experienced, and you're delivering in a hospital or a birthing center with good facilities, then a potential problem can be taken care of. Whereas if you deliver at home or in a bad facility, it could turn into disaster. So if somebody wants to deliver at home, that's not the standard of care, in my opinion, in the United States. Whether you go to a midwife or a doctor, it should be in a good facility. And I believe the ideal time to deliver, they've done a large study of over 150,000 pregnant women, is 39 to 40 weeks. They showed that at 39 to 40 weeks, the baby has the least chance of going to the special care nursery. If you deliver before 39 weeks, sometimes the lungs are immature. Once you go past 40 weeks, there's all kinds of things that can happen to the baby that could have been prevented, because nowadays, if you have a ripe cervix, it's very easy to induce people. There's a lot of misconceptions about induction, but in my hands, induction has saved many, many women from having C-sections or many babies from having problems that if they had allowed nature to take its course, which doesn't always work right, it could have been a problem, which I could sit here all day and tell you all kinds of stories, but that's not the point of this interview. but you want to be comfortable with your care. We want you to have a good experience. An easy vaginal delivery is easier than a C-section, but a hard vaginal delivery is worse. We call it a vaginal C-section, which is much worse than having a regular C-section. So if things are progressing normally and your baby's not too big and it tolerates labor, we want you to have a vaginal delivery, but it doesn't always work like that. So you just have to remember that what you want to happen and what you think should happen may not happen. You have to trust your doctor and his judgment and the facility that you're delivering in.
And the facilities that you deliver in, what local hospitals are those?
I deliver in 2 very good hospitals that have very good OB units, West Boca Medical Center and Boca Raton Regional Hospital.
And if you have any questions for Dr. Patterson, the number is 1-888-565-1470. We'll be here.
561.
Oh, 561. I'm giving out the main radio number for
okay.
here if they have any questions.
Problem.
Now, also, but Dr. Patterson is in Boca Raton and Coral Springs, as I just mentioned, on staff at West Boca Regional Medical Center and Boca Regional Hospital. I want to get into a little bit more about the care that you provide with birth care and prenatal as well. But let's talk a little bit more about your office, since we just got into those in Coral Springs and Boca Raton. What types of in-office surgeries do you offer in the office today?
Sure, that's the latest trend in OBGYN, that a lot of procedures that used to be done in the hospital as an outpatient can be done in the office. The reason we do these in the office is because they can be done in the office. They're not hard to do. It's much more convenient for the patient. It's much more economical, whereas a patient has these procedures in the office. It may only be a copay, whereas it may be much more expensive in the hospital. So not everybody can have a procedure in the office. Not everybody is a candidate, but usually these procedures, 90% of women are candidates to have them in the office, and they'd rather have them in the comfort of my office, which is much more personalized, runs much more on time than going to the hospital, where it could run late. You could be there all day for a 5-minute procedure, which is, in my opinion, ridiculous, and it's much more expensive. And some people go to sleep for these procedures where they can easily stay awake because they're so easy to do and relatively painless if we give you the right medicine and do the procedure the right way and you're the proper candidate. Some of these procedures we do in the office are hysteroscopy. That's a procedure, a very common procedure where you look inside a woman's uterus with a little scope. It's used to diagnose and treat abnormal bleeding. Where you look in there with the scope, you can see what's going on inside the uterus, if the tissue looks abnormal, if the lady has a fibroid or a polyp in the uterus, and then you can do a biopsy, send it to the lab to make sure there's no infection, pre-cancer, or heaven forbid, cancer. We also do Essure tubals in the office. That's a very good sterilization procedure that's non-invasive. There's no cutting. It's very easy to do. And for the vast majority of women, it's very safe. It's much easier than for the man having a vasectomy or the woman having a laparoscopic tubal in the hospital. It's much less invasive, much easier. It takes 5 minutes, very little downtime. Usually when I do it, the patient can do whatever they want the next day, and they have very little discomfort afterwards, as long as you're not allergic to nickel, because there's a nickel coil that goes into each tube, and the tube develops scar tissue around the coil. As long as you're not allergic to nickel, you're a candidate. The people that have had problems with this are people that were not tested for allergy to nickel, which is below the standard of care. All my patients, if they don't know, I have the little stent that they actually tape on their arm for 24 hours, and if they break out in a rash, then they can't have it. Other contraindication would be if your uterus has had a lot of surgery or you have scar tissue in your uterus, you can't do it, or if you've had a previous pelvic infection of your tubes. But for the vast majority of women, this is a very easy and convenient way to fix your tubes. We also do endometrial ablation in the office. Endometrial ablation is a procedure where you put a little instrument in the uterus. There's different ways to do it, and you get rid of the endometrial tissue. So it's used to treat people who have heavy bleeding or abnormal bleeding instead of the old-fashioned way, whereas if medicine didn't work, they had to have a hysterectomy. This is that step in between. So as long as your tissue has been sampled first, which is a standard of care, to make sure that there's no pre-cancer or cancer or infection, endometrial ablation is a great procedure that just takes a few minutes that can save a lady from having a hysterectomy. Other procedures we do in the office are LEAP procedures. Sometimes if you have an abnormal pap smear that needs to be treated, you can remove a little piece of the cervix. It takes less than a minute. It's relatively painless. And MyoSure procedure, that's a procedure where you put an instrument inside the uterus and you can shave away polyps or fibroids instead of the old-fashioned where you had to open up the uterus or just put something in there and grab it and pull it. This is a much more efficient procedure. So these office procedures have really been a boon to gynecology, and it's been much better for the patient, and it's much more economical because often the patient is just a copay, whereas if they go in the hospital or an outpatient surgery center, it's much more expensive for the patient, and it's much more expensive for the healthcare dollar.
Wow, that's great. And that's all done in office. Now, these patients actually walk out of the office after all these procedures you just listed?
Yes, somebody has to drive them because we do give them a little medication. Some doctors, you can go to sleep for these procedures in the office. Some doctors do them bring an anesthesiologist in the office to put them to sleep. But most of the people in our organization, Florida Women Care, including myself, we keep our patients awake. We have the combination of the proper drugs to make them comfortable. And so if you don't have to go to sleep, it's a lot of times safer for the patient because every once in a while they could have a problem with the anesthesia and you have to let the anesthesia wear off and that sort of thing. So my patients want to stay awake. They just have to have somebody drive them there and drive them home. And it works out very well.
Thank you for explaining all those procedures you do right in the office. In such in depth. I mean, that's important because just mentioning areas of interest or what you do is one thing, but taking the time to explain it the way you did, you're a very thorough physician. I got to give you that.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, that's great to see. Let's talk about something else that you have available in your office. It's great for patient privacy and then also care, not only for the patient, but for the staff as well. It's the Patterson under buttocks drape, and now it's in for office procedures. Now, how does this Patterson under buttocks drape work, and then how did it come about? I know there's an interesting story here.
Sure. It's a drape that I developed with a good friend of mine. Paul Lingman is a friend of mine from high school. He's the owner of Best Seal Drapes. When you do procedures in the office, you use fluid, and that fluid tends to get on the table and the floor. A lot of doctors just use a garbage bag, and it's very messy. I don't like a mess on the floor. I want a clean office. My patients want a clean office. So I developed a drape that goes underneath the patient, and it catches all the fluids so nothing goes on the floor. And it's unique because it has a pouch that comes out, and it has straps that attach to the pouch, so they actually keep the pouch open so it actually catches the fluid. A lot of people use drapes that have pouches, but they don't catch the fluid, so nothing goes on the floor. It's less messy. It's cleaner. It's more sterile. You can turn over the room faster, and it keeps your office in much better shape. And it's been a little project that we did, and it's very convenient for the office.
Now, and then how did this idea come about? I know it's from is it a high school friend that you two kind of came up with?
Sure. He owns a drape company, and he's done drapes for inpatient procedures. His brother's a urologist, so he's been in the urology field for years. But we got together. I said, we need a good drape for the office. So with his expertise and my expertise, we came up with this drape that works very well. I use it in my office, and many of my colleagues are starting to use it, and they're very happy with it because they don't spill fluids or blood on the floor, on their clothes, on their shoes, on the table, everywhere. It's very neat, and you want to keep your office nice and neat, and it's much better for your MA. She doesn't have to clean up all that fluid and use all the sterilization techniques, and it's much better for office turnover. And I have a nice office, nice tables, nice floor, so I don't want that getting all dirty with secretions and things like that. It's just much cleaner and much better. And I mean, people that use a garbage bag, that's, in my opinion, sloppy.
Yeah, it's a genius idea, and we'll give out a plug. It's bestsealdrapes.com for anyone in the medical industry looking for a genius idea to offer their patients and staff as well. I wanted to take a 360 back to kind of where we were before, talking a little bit about birth care. Let's talk a little bit about prenatal vitamins. Why are they so important, and when should a woman start taking them? Is it as soon as they find out they're pregnant, or how does that work?
Well, basically, if you know you're going to try to get pregnant, it's better to be on prenatal vitamins and extra folic acid while you're trying, because the very beginning of pregnancy is the most crucial. Folic acid can help prevent neural tube defects, and prenatal vitamins give your baby what it needs and gives you the nutrients that you need while not giving anything unnecessarily that could be harmful to the baby. So if you know you're going to get pregnant, you should be on them while you're trying. If all of a sudden you find yourself pregnant, as soon as you find that out, then that's when you should start that, as well as eating well, watching your diet, staying away from artificial foods, raw foods, high salt, high sugar. And nowadays, another thing you can do if you know you're going to get pregnant is you can do genetic testing before you're pregnant. But one thing we do is early genetic testing when you are pregnant.
And is that's the blood test that can tell actually the gender, and is it also it can tell for things like Down syndrome or other disorders?
Correct. That's called the NIPT blood test, and that can be drawn as early as 10 to 11 weeks, and you can rule out chromosome defects, and also can tell the gender.
Okay, and then also, one thing here a lot with the early stages of pregnancy is morning sickness. Why does morning sickness affect some women and then others not so much? And how long should it last? Can it last during the whole pregnancy?
I mean, that's a unique situation. Some people never get morning sickness. Some people do. It's how the woman reacts to the hormones that are put out by the pregnancy. If somebody does get morning sickness, most people it goes away by the end of the first trimester. But some people it can last longer. Some people it last shorter. There are new medications now. There's a new medication, a diclegus, that's category A, so it's totally safe that women can use. And there's other prescription medications and non-prescription things that we can give for that. For some people, it can be quite a problem. For other people, they never get it. So it's really an individual thing that we try to manage and help the patient with if they develop it.
Now, I got one more question on OBGYN, and then I want to ask you a couple questions of what you do outside of medicine. We got about 2 minutes left, so
okay.
We'll rip through these. This is something that's always in the news, it seems like. What is the HPV virus? How is it harmful to a woman? And should young women be vaccinated?
Sure. HPV virus is a human papilloma virus. You acquire that through sexual activity. It's been shown that the human papilloma virus can cause abnormal changes of the cervix. It can cause precancer, and if left untreated, in some women can develop to cancer. Also, there's other strains that can cause vulvar and vaginal warts that can be very hard to get rid of. So it is recommended that young women get vaccinated for the HPV virus before they're sexually active, because the vaccination protects them from the most common strains of HPV virus that can cause these problems. So you get vaccinated first, and then you're much less likely to get it. It doesn't totally protect you 100%, but it much decreases your chance of getting the HPV virus, either the cervix, vagina, or the vulva, which can cause problems throughout your entire lifetime.
And we're here with Dr. Alan Patterson, obstetrician and gynecologist, OBGYN, here in Boca Raton. His address is 660 Glades Road, Suite 340. Like I said, here in Boca Raton. The number is 561-417-4000. Dr. Patterson also has an office at 7451 Wiles Road, Suite 205 in Coral Springs. And then a good way to find him online is the website obgynpatterson.com. That's obgynpatterson, patterson.com. Dr. Patterson, we've really ripped through just about every question I prepared for, and I really thank you for being so in depth. My last kind of curveball question is, when you're not providing medicine or care to your patients in South Florida and not delivering babies, what are your passions in life outside of medicine?
Well, my family. I have a lovely wife and 2 lovely children I like to spend time with. On Sunday morning, I play golf. I used to play golf more often, but just don't have time. We play early. We play fast. We don't want to wait. We're pretty good. So as long as I can still play golf and hit the ball well, I enjoy that. actively trade the stock market. I've been doing that since I've been 26 years old. So I also do that in my spare time, and I try to work out, swim, that sort of thing, and help my wife around the house whenever I can.
Well, this is the Health and Wealth Network, so they may ask you to come back on and talk about the stock market, because I'm sure a lot of people would like to ask you questions about the recent movement in the stock market.
Sure, anytime. I'm very in tune with everything.
That's great, and that's important to live a healthy life, to be so active. Obviously, you're very thorough and educated physician. I mean, we can tell just by the interview. But to stay active by playing golf and doing other things, is that a good way to stay healthy? Keep the mind active?
Yes. I mean, you want to, cultivate your mind, but everybody wants to do some kind of exercise. You have to do something you like. I used to run marathons, but I just can't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. So I swim instead. It's much easier on my joints, and I love my golf. I'm playing great golf. So as I get older, I'm playing better. So golf's a great game that you can play when you're 90. So that's why I like golf.
Do you have a favorite local track, golf course?
Polo Trace.
Oh, nice.
Great course. Great course.
And
I'm a sports fan. I'm from Indiana, so Indiana Pacers, Indianapolis Colts, Indiana Hoosiers. I'm a homer. I root for the Miami teams when they're not playing my Indiana teams, but when they're playing my Indiana teams, I got to be a homer.
And likewise, everyone knows I'm a big Miami Heat and Miami Dolphin. Obviously FAU, where I went to school, and the Florida Panthers. But I'll tell you what, I do really enjoy watching the Indiana teams, the Hoosiers, Pacers, and Colts, and then those series a few years ago with the Heat were unbelievable. So I really
it's much better when they're both good. I went to the game the other night. The Heat played harder. They deserved to win, but it was a fun game. We had great seats, and I always like going to a game when I can. I usually go when they play the Pacers twice a year.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on Doctors Are People Too. I definitely want to have you aboard in the new year if you're interested.
Oh, definitely. Be happy to anytime.
Okay, that's Dr. Alan Patterson, 660 Glades Road, Suite 340 here in Boca Raton, 561-417-4000, and over in Coral Springs, 7451 Wiles Road, Suite 205. And the website is OBGYNPatterson, PATTERSON.com. Thank you for coming on Doctors Are People Too.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
My dad is a cardiologist, and so I have two brothers, and we were all equally painful to my mom. And so to get us out of the hospital, we would go on rounds with him on Saturdays and Sundays in the hospital back in Oklahoma City. And we used to, race wheelchairs down the hallways from the time I was about 6 years old. When I was a freshman in high school, I got to watch my first heart transplant. But I think what really kind of made me want to be a doctor was around the holidays. The house always filled up with tons of gifts from thankful patients, and to impact people's lives like that in a positive manner was something that was very exciting to me. I'm very patient-oriented. I care about the patients both professionally and personally, and not only about their result, but also that I'm passionate about new technologies. I'm passionate about research, and I'm passionate about offering them the best technology available with the lowest risk and with the best outcome. What you want in a physician is someone who is personable, works as a team, embraces new technology, is clearly accomplished, but I think most importantly is somebody who you get confidence in. And the way I would have confidence is if I had a condition, I would read as much about it as I could before I showed up, probably off the internet, and then ask very directed questions. I do a lot of exercise. Running is what I use to kind of calm my brain down and kind of sort my thoughts out. So I enjoy, I just will put my shoes on and go for a run, and then I do mix in a little bit of yoga, something probably not many people know about me. I keep that on the down low, but so I do some yoga, and I go to the gym like most people.
Tenet Florida Physician Services is a multi-specialty physician group providing care to the communities of Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade since 2007. The TFPS team is committed to delivering quality care. Our mission is to improve the quality of life of everyone who walks through our doors. Today, we are proud to be one of the largest and most respected physician networks in the area. To learn more about Tenet Florida Physician Services, visit tfpsdocs.com. That's tfpsdocs.com. Or to find a doctor, call 1-866-654-2362.
You are listening to Doctors Are People Too with David DiPino, who shows us the human side of medical doctors in the community. If you have a question for our guest, call into the show at 888-565-1470. Now, let's get back to the fun side of doctors and show that they are people too.
Hello, South Florida and beyond, and welcome back to Doctors Are People Too, globally on the iHeart Radio app, locally on WWNN Radio app, and on 95.3 FM and 1470 AM. Glad to be here, and I'm really glad to have on the program tonight a cardiologist new to the area, but who has hit the ground running at the South Florida Heart Institute in Delray Beach. Dr. Jonathan Cahan, how are you tonight? Welcome to Doctors Are People Too.
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks for coming aboard to Doctors Are People Too. Let me just tell people where your location is quickly, and then we'll get more into the interview. It's a great heart practice, cardiology practice, South Florida Heart Institute, right here in Delray Beach, 5035 Via Delray. It's at the intersection of Military Trail between Atlantic Avenue and Woolbright Road. The number is 561-637-0500, or you can learn more about Dr. Cahan at tfpsdocs.com. That's tfpsdocs.com. Dr. Cahan, I wanted to have you on the program for a while, talk about your areas of interest, but then interesting story, kind of a sad story in the news lately was the passing of Alan Thicke, who I actually grew up watching on Growing Pains. He was Jason Seaver, the psychiatrist on the TV sitcom Growing Pains. What did you hear when you heard the news that Alan Thicke had passed away at 69 years old from suffering a heart attack? And the reason why I ask you is he was 69, but he looked really good in age, and it looked like he was in really good shape.
Right. So, I mean, as a fellow Canadian, I really, the news hit me hard. I know, I've been watching Alan Thicke's stuff for many decades as well. And, he was actually playing hockey at the time that he passed away with his son, which is, even more sad. One of the things that everyone says as well, he's a TV actor, looked like he was in great shape. And I think that's, fairly common reaction that people have to people who have these sort of sudden cardiac events, and I think one of the things now, I don't obviously know personally what happened to him, but one of the things that happens with middle-aged men especially is as they get older, they have high blood pressure, their cholesterol goes up, they may have diabetes, and they may not exercise regularly. And when people exercise, it puts greater demand on their heart from an oxygen point of view, and from a heart rate point of view, their blood pressure also goes up. And if a person isn't, physically ready for that change, can lead to big problems. Also, we call high blood pressure the silent killer because you don't feel it. You don't feel it for decades, and people come in and their blood pressure has been, out of control for many, many years. And it really can lead to these sort of issues because the heart has to pump so hard against the resistant arteries.
And is that why it's always important to, have a preventative medicine plan to see your, doctors on a regular basis and not skip out? Because you could be someone who looks very fit on the outside, but inside, internally, there could be a lot more going on.
Absolutely. And a lot of the times, the only way we can tell is by, checking, under the hood and seeing what's going on. So I would definitely recommend everyone before they start doing exercise, especially heavy exercise. I know a lot of guys just want to go into the gym, or a lot of women just want to get on the elliptical and, run or their hearts out. But, it's really important to check with your doctor before starting these exercise programs because you can't always tell on the surface what's happening.
And I think that's also important. I'm guilty of it. I'm kind of a yo-yo exerciser. I do really well for a few months and then kind of fall off. Happens all the time, but I never thought of it in that way. I should probably, be talking to my doctor or cardiologist if I'm going to be, going from nothing to full tilt. I mean, that can be a shock to the heart, is what you're saying. Let me ask you also your areas of interest in cardiology here in Delray Beach and then on staff at Delray Medical Center. What are your areas of interest?
Right. So I really, I deal with a lot of, the bread and butter stuff like the heart disease and the, ischemia and the blockages in the coronary artery disease. I'm also really interested in, treating high blood pressure and especially complicated high blood pressure. I like dealing with the imaging side of cardiology, so looking, under the hood, as we said, with patients doing echocardiograms. I do transesophageal echocardiograms. I treat arrhythmias, and kind of, I'm all around.
Okay. Now, I going back to Alan Thicke, I kind of think of him like a silver fox. I mean, he's very healthy skin tone, and we kind of talked about it before. He was very active. You said he was playing hockey when he passed away, which I did read a article on that, and I know that I saw that a witness said that he even cracked a joke with his son about taking a picture of him on the stretcher, and then also that he was cracking jokes on the way on the ambulance ride to the hospital. I know he wasn't your patient, but have you ever seen that before, where someone can have, or you heard the story before, someone can have a cardiac event like that and then kind of be okay for a little bit, and then it really kind of, I guess, takes hold and becomes a real problem?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the scariest things that we deal with is arrhythmias from the bottom of the heart when patients have heart attacks. This is called ventricular fibrillation or ventricular tachycardia, and what this does is it effectively turns the heart from a pumping machine into it's just quivering, it's just fibrillating and not really moving at all, and the blood flow stops almost immediately to the brain and to the rest of the body. It's extremely dangerous, and unless you're able to relieve that in some way, the patients typically pass away very quickly. All the more reason to prevent heart attacks from happening in the first place, and I think most people in the medical community believe that 80% to 90% of heart disease is preventable if you have a good plan with your cardiologist.
And like I said before, it's a generalization, but it was tough with me when I saw this news. I always think of, unfortunately, condolences to Alan Thicke's family, but also I always think of John Candy, the actor who was a little out of shape and passed away from a heart attack, or James Gandolfini, the Tony Soprano's kind of a bigger guy like myself. So I think the awareness, we really search for answers and awareness when we see someone like Alan Thicke pass away. So thank you so much for sharing all your insight on that. I know he's not your patient, but it's important to have a cardiologist on here to talk about the awareness and what's going on there with heart attacks. Now, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the symptoms that individuals or family members can look for in terms of if they have a relative or friend or that may be having a heart incident or heart attack? Are there any symptoms that you can point out?
Absolutely. So the first one we always look for, I think the first one that everyone thinks about is, chest pain, and it feels like an elephant sitting on your chest, and you can't breathe. That is, first and foremost the biggest symptom. But then there's a lot of other ones. We get very concerned when patients complain of, chest pain that goes to the jaw or down the left arm or even down both arms. We see that not infrequently. Any chest pain that's heading to the back, and especially with women, a lot of upper back pain that's kind of persistent and out of nowhere is concerning. And those are some of the signs. Sweating is another big one that we think about and get very worried about.
And one more question before we take a quick break. How can a heart attack be prevented? Obviously, we know smoking is a big risk for the heart, but what are some other things?
Sure. So, we look at things like diet. That's a big one. We obviously are recommending, more of a plant-based diet, less in red meat, less in sugar, heavy on the vegetables, heavy on the fruits. Also, take in mind your family history. We know that there's a big genetic component to all of this. And if, your father had a heart attack or your mother had a heart attack, we really want to be very vigilant about, checking your cholesterol and making sure that you're not diabetic or treating diabetes if you are. And, we have great preventative tools. The unfortunate thing is that oftentimes we don't get there until it's after the event.
So share the information with your doctors and your cardiologists on your family history, and be in tune with preventative care. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other side, talk about a normal day in the office for Dr. Kahan at the South Florida Heart Institute and at Delray Medical Center on Doctors Are People Too.
Hi, my name is Dr. Rahul Agarwal. I'm an interventional cardiologist in Jupiter, Florida. I did my medical school at the University of Florida and my internship and residency at the same program. I did my chief residency also at Shands, and then did my cardiology and interventional cardiology at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I specialize in general cardiology, interventional cardiology, and nuclear cardiology. Even though I'm an interventional cardiologist, the majority of my practice involves general cardiology. General cardiology is a pretty broad spectrum in that it involves rhythm problems such as atrial fibrillation, heart disease such as coronary artery disease, congenital heart disease, high blood pressure, and cholesterol problems. I do procedures such as cardioversions, which involve trying to convert the patient back to a normal rhythm if they have an arrhythmia. Also deal with plumbing problems such as the coronary arteries, which if they're blocked, I can do angioplasty and stents, which involves balloons that open up the arteries. And these stents act as scaffolds that keep these arteries open. I really do believe in preventive medicine, and one of the areas that I really focus on is diet. One can really get caught up on the pills aspect and the exercise. And diet we talk about a lot, but unless one really has some guidance as to where to go with diet, it can be quite difficult. So I do give my patients homework in terms of books or movies that they can rent or obtain so that they can get educated. Our cardiology office is located in the Abacoa area of Jupiter, Florida, conveniently located between two of the local hospitals. We provide echocardiography, stress testing, ultra monitoring, and general cardiology office visits. We really pride our practice in its staff, who are very courteous and professional. We believe that under our care, you'll feel the same way too.
Love Katie Cakes specializes in paleo, gluten-free, vegan, and regular sweets. Whether it's a cake, cookies, muffins, bites, or delicious treats, Love Katie Cakes is available for your special occasion. Katie DiPino is a certified pastry chef. Call her at 561-635-5831. It's Love Katie Cakes, LOVEKATIEKAKES @gmail.com, Facebook, and Instagram.
You are listening to Doctors Are People Too with David DiPino, who shows us the human side of medical doctors in the community. If you have a question for our guest, call into the show at 888-565-1470. Now, let's get back to the fun side of doctors and show that they are people too.
And we're back with Dr. Jonathan Kahan, cardiologist with the South Florida Heart Institute, 5035 Via Del Rey. It's easy. It's easy location, I should say. The intersection of Military Trail in Via Del Rey between Atlantic Avenue and Woolbright Road here in Palm Beach County. It is a cardiology practice known as the South Florida Heart Institute. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the actual office. You have an extensive list of areas of interest on your tfbsheart.com website. But before I go too much into detail, what is a normal day in the office for you at the South Florida Heart Institute? What type of cardiac ailments do you diagnose, manage, and treat in the office? And I know you do some testing there on the bottom floor of the South Florida Heart Institute. And let me just say that is a beautiful actual practice with the Riverstone on the outside, and the easy parking in and out is a dream to get in and out of. So tell me a little bit more about South Florida Heart Institute.
Right. So we have a very busy practice, 2-floor, beautiful building, pretty new. And we do, all our testing on the ground floor, our echocardiograms. We can do many types of stress tests there as well. We do, exercise, nuclear with different medications. And so we really kind of do it all. Typical day in the office, we split our time usually. We do half days in the office and half days in the hospital at Delray Medical Center. And it's actually pretty hectic sometimes because you're, going back and forth between seeing patients in the office and, helping people in the hospital. But what it really does is gives us a great variety of things that we treat. And it really, I think, keeps us fresh and on our toes. So typically, we'll see patients in the office, and we try to make our schedules not so busy. I see pretty much every day we're able to fit 1 or 2 or 3 people in who need to be seen that day, and that's just the nature of how cardiology is. So we're pretty wide open in terms of scheduling when we need to be.
And tell me a little bit about your colleagues. Dr. Eric Lieberman, I know he's Regional Medical Director of Cardiology for Tenet Florida Heart and Vascular Network. Actually, correct me if I'm wrong. That's what I'm trying to say. Dr. Mark Fisher is a cardiologist right there.
Yep.
Dr. Mark Gardner is an interventional cardiologist on site.
Yep.
Dr. Arthur Weiner, cardiologist, and Dr. Jonathan Vafai, cardiologist.
Correct.
Wow.
And Dr. Fisher and Dr. Weiner also do intervention as well. So we kind of run the gamut of everything. We're able to pretty much do the whole scope of cardiology, and coming into this practice and learning from these guys has been a really amazing experience. They're great mentors, and not only that, they really are regional leaders in terms of thinking and where cardiology is going. And pretty much all of them are on committees and involved in research into the new sort of exciting fields of cardiology, which we're starting up at Delray. And so it's a really exciting time. It's a really exciting time to join practice and to work with 5 other guys who are at the peak of their game.
And you said you spend half the day in the office and half the day on staff at the hospital?
Right. Well, that's my personal schedule.
Oh, okay.
I do
That's neat,
a lot of
though.
the hospital work. Yeah, it is good. Some of the other guys, will spend a full day in the office, full day in the hospital. But we're always covering both places, and we're always there. So I think our patients really appreciate us, being there in so many different locations at the same time, and covering them when they need us most.
Now, those are your patients that you're seeing in the hospital. Do you also see patients that are admitted into the hospital as well?
Yes, so we see everyone. We see our own patients. We'll often get called pretty much daily. We'll get called from the emergency room to see new patients never met before, but it doesn't matter. Whatever the problem is, we have the resources and the ability to help you guys out.
And Delray Medical Center, that's a great heart hospital. There's some great things going on there.
Right. So we're building a new tower that's going to be pretty heavy in cardiology. We're starting a lot of new research groups and new research projects there, which are going to really sort of guide the future of cardiology. A lot of the procedures and tests that we did are changing, and we're basically on the forefront of all of it. So it's really exciting to be working for such a great place.
And I can tell you from experience, I drove by and the tower looks like it's almost like complete. I know there's going to be a helipad on the top for trauma, and I think it's 5162 Linton Boulevard in Delray Beach. That's Delray Medical Center, where Dr. Kahan and his colleagues are on staff at. We have a few more minutes. I want to ask you a little bit about atrial fibrillations come into the news a lot in the last few years, or AFib. Now, can you explain what is AFib, and is it classified as a heart arrhythmia?
Sure. So heart arrhythmias are basically abnormal electrical patterns from the heart. There's a bunch of them, and actually atrial fibrillation is the most common one because it's caused by things like high blood pressure and old age, and a few other causes. The problem with atrial fibrillation is, it causes the heart to beat very quickly. So if you're experiencing palpitations or dizziness, that could be a cause. The other problem with atrial fibrillation is it can cause a stroke because blood pools at the tops of the heart and can go to the brain, which can be devastating. Fortunately, we have a lot of great treatments for it. We have the ability to get you out of atrial fibrillation if you're in it. We can control your rate while you're in it, and we can prevent it from happening. And we can also prevent you having a stroke with some great medications that are, kind of in the news a lot lately, like Xarelto and Eliquis and those sorts of things. So we have a lot of tools at our disposal. It's definitely, a big problem, and the arrhythmia in the arrhythmia world, we're only seeing more and more of it as the population ages, and high blood pressure and those sorts of things, come into focus.
I've heard one patient describe it as a bird fluttering in her chest. Have you ever heard that before?
Absolutely. There's actually a cousin of atrial fibrillation called atrial flutter. which so the fluttering sensation in the chest is quite common, and we have the procedures and the medications to take care of it.
I didn't know that. We learned something new here on Doctors Are People Too.
There we go.
Now let me ask you a couple curveball questions I always like to throw in at the end. Why did you become a doctor? I know you said this could be the hardest question that I asked tonight, but I was a little surprised. Why did you become a doctor?
I think that when I was younger, in high school, and the people were kind of deciding what they wanted to do, the only thing I really wanted to do was actually help people. I mean, I know it sounds lame, but I spent, every single summer since I was 16, volunteering in hospitals and, doing everything I could to be around that culture. I think that, just being there for people when they need you most, and, people really do need you most in the hospital and, in the clinic is, where I want to be. And I can't think of a job that's more rewarding than that.
And you have a family member that is also a physician
Correct.
as well?
My dad is a addiction medicine doctor up in Toronto, Canada, where I was originally from.
Wow, so it must have worn off on you. He actually helps people also on an everyday basis.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yep. He definitely helps a lot of people. Now he's retiring, but
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, was Toronto, Canada home? Is that where you're from?
That's where I'm from. That was,
wow.
Yeah.
So you a big Maple Leafs fan or Argonauts or any of that?
I like the Panthers.
awesome.
Panthers. They're a great team.
Great to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a really good year last year. This year, I mean, pretty much 500.
Yeah.
So I haven't been to a hockey game this year. I got to a few last year. So it was really great to see.
Yeah.
We're here with Dr. Jonathan Kahan, cardiologist at the South Florida Heart Institute, 5035 Via Del Rey in Delray Beach. Like I said before, it's really easy to get in and out of. I've been there. It's the Riverstone building with the imaging and testing on the first floor and the doctor's offices on the second floor at the intersection of Military Trail and Via Del Rey. That's between Atlantic Avenue and Delray Beach and Woolbright Road in Boynton Beach, right on Military Trail there. The number is 561-637-0500, or you can visit tfpsdocs.com. Dr. Kahan, it's hard to believe, but we've ripped through a whole segment on Doctors Are People Too. Thank you for coming on. I hope that you'll visit us in 2017, which is right around the corner.
Thank you. And I would just like to say hi to Dikla, Haley, and Ben who are listening. Thank you.
Awesome, and thanks for listening, everyone, on Doctors Are People Too.
Thank you for listening and watching Doctors Are People Too with David DiPino. Join us next week for more in-depth views on what doctors are all about and how they spend their free time. All shows can be seen on amp2.tv. And if you have questions you want answered on the air, call 866-224-5422 and leave a message that can be read on the air. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this